गुरु स्वरूप गुरु प्यारी गुरु महाराज जी दी नवाजी सत्कारी साध संगत जी फतेह प्रवान करनी वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. So we've been blessed by the utmost grace of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj to be given this opportunity to sit in the sanctuary in the Sangat. So last night we discussed at the end of the talk the 5 types of kirpa, and the first type of kirpa was Vaheguru di kirpa. Vaheguru di kirpa ki hai sat sangat. Sat sangat di kirpa ki hai sat da upadesh, that we get instilled with the teachings of the truth. And in that way, the final one was that apne aap te apa kidda kirpa karni hai. How do we bestow kirpa on ourselves? That is kamai. So, since Amrit Vela, Guru Maharaj Ji has been Prakashman, and we've done abhyas of Gurmantar in Kirtan Swarup, then of Turki Bani, Sri Asa Ji Ki War. And now, the final portion of this Amrit Vela Divan, this morning Divan, is Katha. Because in the Rahatname, which are the advice, the guidelines that Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj gave to the Khalsa, they say that the Sikh's Nitnem is not complete until he does all of these things: Mool Mantar, Gur Mantar, so Kirtan, and then Katha and Gurbanhee the Nitnem. Without these things, the Nitnem is not complete. So now we're doing Katha, and Katha the Mahatam. So we heard in Sukhmani Sahib yesterday, Sabte Uttam Har Ki Katha, Naam Simran Dard Dukh Latha. That through this Katha, through this Amrit Katha, this Vichar, all the questions that we have in our mind, Guru Maharaj themselves speaks through the Bhakta, and they also reside in your hearts as well, in the Srote, and that becomes a divine communication between Akal Purkh Vaheguru and us. So in yesterday's Vichar, in last night's Divan, we discussed what is Naam, what, why, where and how, and that for some, the feedback we got was that it was a bit in depth. The whole idea of this Naam Kamai Camp was to familiarize ourselves with Naam. And there's many individuals, cults, sects out there that through this lalach, through this alluring us through this Naam, they'll get us to do what they think, their vichar. But we need to be very clear that what Guru Maharaj Ji defines as Naam and what we can do to achieve that Naam. So yesterday was about defining Naam. And now today is that when we have Naam Di Prapti, what do we get? Where do we go with Naam Di Prapti? So in yesterday's, we discussed Sant Ka Marg Dharm Ki Paudi, that this is the Marg, this is the path that will lead us to become Sants. And what are Sants? That Santana Chodde Sante, the ones that have Shanti, that have peace. That peace that we are all lacking, we are all without. That peace is in them, and we can become Sants ourselves. Santaka Margan Dharm Ki Paudi, the ladder is of righteousness to climb up it. And we went through the 7 stages of this ladder, the 7 steps. Now, today we will discuss that when we come on this path, when we begin to take our spiritual Jeevan seriously and we make Naam as our aim, where can we go? And first of all, I'd just like to say that even though I'm talking about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that I've been there at all. In fact, it's much like in the Langar, we have a Kadshi, it serves sabji with everyone, but itself stays empty. So that's my halat. But in Bhai Gurdas Diyan Waran, it says that Sun Pratap Kabir da Dusar Bhagt Sain Nai Hoa, that listening to the Vadiyai of Kabir Ji and how they got to Parmeshwar, Sain Nai, a normal person, he too became a Bhagat. In Gurbanhee, we hear all the Mahatams of, even in today's Hukamnama, Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj said, Koi jan harsyon deva jor. So, someone please unite me with Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Now, their stories, their avastha can only give us inspiration to go on this marg. And sometimes we separate ourselves that their avastha was so high, they were so different to us, they lived in such a different context. We are different, we have different situations, we are in a different time frame. But we forget that Gurbanee, in Mool Mantra, it starts Aad Sach, Jugad Sach, Hai Pi Sach, Nanak Hosi Pi Sach. And the first definition of Naam is Sat Naam. Trei Kalabad is the true name. What can be true that is true in the three tenses, you can say, and that was true in the past, that is true in the present, and that will be true in the future. That is only Parmeshwar's Naam. And we too can achieve it. Firstly, one question that came back was that we talked about how to get to Naam, all the stages of Sant Ka Marg Dharm Ki Paudi, but one question was that how did we originally become separate from Akal Purkh Vaheguru? And it's an important question because different religions have different creation stories, different versions of it, and sometimes we're not clear what our own version is, and that's why we get deluded. We start to look for answers elsewhere. But in Sri Japji Sahib, Guru Maharaj Ji explains that Eka Mai Jugat Vyai Tin Chele Parvan, that Akal Purkh Vaheguru was Eka, he was one. It was only him that existed in this universe, and from him he sculpted the whole universe out of his own form with what? With what? Maya, Mai. Tin Chele Parvan. And that Maya consisted of three different things: Rajogun, Tamogun and Satogun. So I'm not going to go into the depth, but Satogun is the pure form, and it goes down through Rajogun, and Tamogun is the impure form, you could say, of Maya. And the whole world was separated into two things, Jeev and Ish. That is what Akal Purkh Vaheguru is immanent in this world, in this universe, and his immanence that he is present within us and that he can act within us is Ish. And that Ish was made out of Satogun. But the Jeev, which is us, that we don't recognize ourselves to be Akal Purkh Vaheguru, that's because we were created out of Tamogun. So it says, Bimbhe Puleo Apan Pao Tamgun Ke Adhikar. That through Tamogun, when Akal Purkh Vaheguru created this whole world through Maya, through Satogun he created his own form and stayed in the world, and through Tamogun he created creation. And that's why we can't remember, but that's why Sri Guru Maharaj's Bani reminds us bar, Mantun Jod Sarup Hai Apna Mool Pashan. And there the mind does not refer to the mind, but it refers to the soul, that you are the pure form of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And this is where that journey begins. The whole journey, the whole avastha of Naam, how it changes one into the other, is like a snake. It sheds skin. It's like that. We have various layers on top of us. Inside of that is that pure form Akal Purkh Vaheguru. But holi we need to get rid of each layer. And as we progress up the Naam avastha ladders, then we will holi realize ourselves to be Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Because there's one thing just knowing that we're the form of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, and then there's one thing to recognize it, and that's the avastha of a Brahmgyani. So, because of the lack of the time, we're going to go straight into the avasthas now. When we begin Simran, when we begin Abhyas, the first thing we do is we do Simran through the tongue. So how we've been doing it vocally in this camp, in the form of Gurmantar, Gurbani, Mool Mantra and Kirtan, we've been doing it through the tongue. Because just like food, although it is the nutrient for our whole body, we can't live without it. Sadde Traiman Dehuri Challe Pani Ann. We cannot live without food, but we can't put food straight into our system. It has to go through the mouth. In that same way, Akal Purkh Vaheguru's Naam, it has to come, it has to begin from our tongue. And that avastha in Gurbanee is called Vaikhri. That is when we recite Maharaj's name with our tongue, and it's important that we do that. And Gurbanee sings the praises of that avastha. Rasana Gun Gopal Nid Gayan. Prabhuji Basa Sad Ki Rasana. So Rasana is the name for tongue. There's all these virtues sang of just doing Maharaj's Naam Abhyas with your tongue, because then that's how it's going to go in. And Maharaj even goes to the extent to say, Haraha Jab Bisra Gobind Rai Dino Din Katiya, Rasna Japena Naam Til Til Kar Katiya. That Rasna, that tongue that does not sing Maharaji's praises, that rasna should be cut into little bits. And sometimes we think that Guru Maharaji bachan are a bit kore, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be like an arrow, and they must pierce through us. Guru Maharaj goes to the extent to say, Jin har hirday naam na vasyo tin mat kijay har banja. So that's how important naam is to Maharaj, that they're saying that Je Bandya, if you are not singing Akal Purkh Vaheguru's praises through your tongue, then it was not even worth your mother conceiving you, having you on this world. That's the importance that Maharaj is placing on the Zuban jap, the jap that we do through our tongue. And holi, that jap that was in the tongue, it will become silent and it will come to our throat in our kant. Because there's one thing, when we say any word or we even do Vaheguru, we can only speak whilst we are exhaling. When we are inhaling, we can't do that abhyas. There will be a point of separation when we're breathing in. But when we get to this next stage in the kant, in the throat, we go past that, and that Simran, even inhaling, exhaling, it's constantly going on. And Guru Maharaj sings the praises of that avastha too, that pokh tukhar na vyapei kant milya har na ho. That person, jide kant vich Parmeshwar da naam vas janda, that goes to that avastha, then they no longer are subdued by the vices. And these two are the upas jap. These ones we will have to make a big conscious effort. First, through singing the praises of Akal Purkh Vaheguru through our tongue, and then internally through our kant. And when we are singing the praises in these two forms, it's very, very important that our ears are the ones that are listening. We're not sunaing so the naam to anyone else. That naam has to go through our own ears. And that's why even Bhai Sahib in their talk yesterday were talking about, for concentration, we should use all 5 sensory organs. So apna dhyan Guru Maharaj Ji de Saroop vich. In that way, all 5 senses, so the smell, when we light incense sticks, doof, etc., we create that ambience for naam. And in these two avasthas especially, because we've just got onto this ladder, it's very, very important that we keep on it. We make the effort. When we go past this, it becomes easier. So the third avastha after this is pasanti. And this is where the Simran goes to our heart. And our heart in Gurbanhee, the word used for heart is or hriday, hirday. And that is sang too in Gurbanhee, Ram naam or main gahe ja ke sam nahi koe. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji says that jede bande de vich Parmeshwar da naam hirday ch pravesh kar jave, ode varga koi hai nahi. There's no one like him, sam nahi koe. And in a Shabad by Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj, in which they are doing Ustat of all the Bhagats, in which they say that Namdev was a Shimba and all he was getting every day was an Addi Damani, so even half of a rupee. And Kabir Ji was a Julaha and they were weaving. In that same way, Ravidas was a Chamar and Sain Nai was a Nai. But when these people, Hirday Vasya Par Brahm Bhagta Mein Ganya, when that Parmeshwar da naam comes to your Hirday, that's when you become a Bhagat. So they ask the definition of a Bhagat. The Gurbanhee gives the definition of a Bhagat that has reached this third stage of Pasanti, where the jap goes in a Hirday. And in the Lama da part 2, Maharaj talks about it. Hirday har 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 tun upji, har japiya mastak bhag jiyo. And after this avastha, so in this avastha, when it's pasanti, when it's going into a heart, it's only our mind that is controlling it. And there's another thing that we have to recognize, that in the beginning, in Vaikri, it was the tongue doing the jap and it was the mind telling the tongue to do the jap. When it went to the kant, the tongue stopped and it was just the mind telling that continue the simran in your kant. And now, even that stopped, the physical is completely stopped. And just like sort of a wind-up toy that children have, you wind it up, you wind it up, you wind it up, and afterwards they apne aap chalan lag penda. And that's what Parmeshwar's naam is like. Now we've got to that stage, it's come to the hirda, and now it's just the mind that's controlling it. But we have to even go past that, because the mind, Guru Maharaj explains in Bani, that sukh and dukh e man diyan birtha, happiness and sadness, sorrow and joy, they subdue the mind. So when they will subdue the mind, we'll go back away from Naam. So we have to go away from even doing jap with the mind. We need to get past that. Now, past that is para. So we've done Vaikri, Madhma, Pasanti, which we were doing in the heart, and now it goes to para. In Parabani, that Simran that we've started from the tongue, now it goes to the Nabbi. Now the Nabbi is in our navel, it sits just above our stomach. And according to Gurbanhee, all of our breath, all of our sa, our pran, where it comes from there, from the Nabbi. And all the other mantras of the world that we sing, so any conversation that we have that conversation, and that breath is coming from the Nabbi, it comes out, and now it's going, even like it is going into all of your ears, it's coming from the Nabbi. But Jira Parmeshwar da naam is going in through the tongue and it's going to the Nabbi. It's completely opposite. That's why Gurbanhee says that sansariyan da bhagtan da koi jod nahi. That's not a discrimination, it's just the truth. That jira sansariyan da mantra, gallan bata, everything, that will come out from the mouth. And jira bhagta da naam it will go back down to the source. Because we're just going back to Mantu Jod Swarup hai. So the first thing we've done is physically we've gone back. So here Guru Maharaj Ji gives this one when they're talking to the Siddhs, that Naab Pavan Kar Asan Baise Gurmukh Khoj Tat Laha. In Siddh Gosht, Guru Maharaj gives this jawab to the Siddhs that jede Gurmukh hai, they find the tat, they find the truth at this avastha. And here in the first stages it was Varnadmik, that Naam, we were describing Maharaj by saying Vaheguru or Mool Mantar or Gur Mantar. Here that tun that is described in Gurbanhee, that Madhur tun anhad gaja, Tan Taneo Ram Ben Baje, Madhur tun anhad gaja. There's a tune, there's a melody that is going in of Akal Purkh Vaheguru's Naam that is profound in all of the universe, but we have not yet become attuned to it. In this avastha, it begins to happen, we begin to hear it, and it becomes a tonatmik jap. And we even discussed yesterday about, Bhai Sahib asked in the question and answer session about Shabad Surat, and this is where it really begins. This is where we become a Sikh by the definition of Gurbanhee, Shabad Guru Surat Tun Chela, where our Surat becomes attuned to Guru Sahib's Shabad. Tun mein dhyan meh janniya Gurmukh kat kahani. So that's where that begins. Now after that, the Simran becomes so resonant in our bodies physically, because still this body is physical. Jo Brahmande soi pinde. To relate to Akal Purkh Vaheguru, we have to apply this human body. This is the purpose of the human body. Gur sevate bhagt kamai tab manas dehi pai. Someone asked Sant Kartar Singh Ji various difficult answers, difficult questions. They tried to trick them, a big scholar. And Sant Kartar Singh Ji on the other hand asked them that, Bhai Sahib, you're a big Gyani, you tell me one thing, that Gurbanhee says Gur sevate bhagt kamai tab manas dehi pai, that we got this body after doing Guru Sahib seva and bhakti, but Gurbanhee ta kendi hai that we should get out of Jamna Marna. So that person did not have an answer, and then Sant Kartar Singh Ji explained that the word tab there, it means for. It doesn't mean to do, it means for. So we were given this body for Guru Di Seva and Bhakti. And in this stage, in the fifth stage, where Guru Maharaj says, Ek sabd mere pran basta hai, bahut janam na ama. And when that Simran will go with our breaths, it will become so, it will synonymous, it will synchronize with our breathing. And that minute we won't be able to forget Naam, it will constantly go. And Sukhmani Sahib says that this is when all the anxieties of the mind finish. That Shanti that we want to gain, that comes here. Sa sa simro gobind man yantar ki utrah chind. And also another thing is that we never forget to breathe. So when Simran becomes resonant in the breathing, it synchronizes in our breathing, we will never ever be able to forget Simran. And when we're constantly being reminded of this Simran that's going inside of us, it will cause us to go away from the vices. We won't see the pleasure in any of them. And Guru Maharaj calls this Ajappa Japna Visra Ad Jugad Sumaye. And after this comes even a bigger avastha. This avastha, it comes to the very, very big blessed Gursikhs after a lot of Kamai. And again, just emphasizing this point that although we might not even be at the first stage, I know that I'm very, very behind, but knowing about this, when you know the aim of something, it's easier to travel towards it, because we need to know what Sikhi is offering us, what Guru Maharaj is giving to us, and how that is unique from whatever else is being offered, even if that comes from other sects and religions, or if it comes even from our mind that's going towards the material. That material can give you this much sukh, but Guru Maharaj's naam is such that Chandan Chandana Sardarut Moolna Mitei Kam Seetal Thiva Nanaka Japandado Har Naam, that doing Simran of Naam, we will become more serene than sandalwood, like we discussed yesterday, the moon, and even the cold weather. These won't compare to the serenity, to the calmness that we will experience when we go through these avasthas. So this sixth avastha that even comes after Simran has gone and synchronized in our pran is Gurmukh Rom Rom Har Tyave. And this is when, how we discussed yesterday, that Sant ka marg begins from Shubh Ichha, which is described in Japji Sahib as Ik du jibo lakh hohe lakh hove lakh vees. That Maharaj, please give me this many tongues, give me 100,000 tongues, that I may do your Simran with that many tongues. That's how much Ichha we should have to be one with Maharaj. And in this avastha, Maharaj blesses us, because every follicle of hair on the body, every pore, it begins to sing the praises of Akal Purkh Vaheguru's Naam. Whatever Naam that we're doing abhyas of, Kamai of, that Naam, it starts to come from that. Now there's stories of many, many Gurmukhs with that. When they were about to pass away, there's not just one sant that in their Jeevan it came. When the doctors with a stethoscope checked their body, they could hear Vaheguru Vaheguru, or whatever Simran they were doing. And this avastha, it is past the experience of the body. We can't control it, it just happens by itself. After this, it goes even further, because at the moment we're just in our own body. So that Simran is only in our physical body. First it was in the tongue, then it went to the throat, then it went to the heart, then it went to the navel, the nabbi. After that, it became synchronized with our breathing, and now with the pores on our body. But everything else in the universe, it continues to happen. And up until this point, we can still get subtracted, subdued from this path. We can get thrown off, no matter how high your avastha is. That's why Gurbanhee gives the focus on keeping nimrata, Garibi Gada Hamari. Because when you keep Garibi, when you keep nimrata, you can't be thrown off it, because it attacks, Hankar attacks, the vices attack Hankar, they don't like Homme. But when you have nimrata, they won't come near you. And in this seventh avastha, everything around us, we begin to hear Naam in it. So that avastha in Gurbanhee has been described as Jo bolat hai mrig meen pankheru bin har japat hai nahi hor. That all, so Gurbanhee gives the example of birds, that when the Gurmukh was hearing a bird chirping, even from that noise, he could hear Vaheguru's name. And there's a Sakhi in Sant Atar Singh Ji's Jeevan where a chakki of atta, a chakki is something that grinds atta, and in those days it became a trend to attach a chakki with an electrical machine, an electrical motor, so that it spins faster. And the noise was quite loud, and Sant were waking up at Amrit Vela, and the Singhs were doing vichar that this noise is so distracting. And Sant go that, what noise is it? And they go that it's of the chakki. And Sant go, no, there is no chakki sound. And the Sevadar said that no, there is a sound that's distracting us. Then Sant said, no, that's someone doing a Vyas, that's Vaheguru, because from even that noise of that machine, they could hear Vaheguru. Now another thing is that doing Simran Abhyas, there's certain things, because Naam is the origin of this universe, Naam Kitare Khand Brahmand. All the things, all the rang, tamashe of this world, they all come during Naam Kamai, and they will try to distract us. So by that, what I'm trying to say is that even though this avastha has come, that everything we're hearing, it does not necessarily mean that if we just hear something now during Kamai, that is that avastha. Because in Sukhmani Sahib Katha, all these things are explained, all the different colours that appear during Simran. And in Gurmat, these are all trivial, they do not matter. When it comes to sounds, there's some cults that have explained that Panch Shabad, that we hear this when we get to that avastha. And Sant in Katha, Sant Gurbanhee Singh explained that just like any machine has a noise that comes from it, or any action that we do, it causes a noise. Akal Purkh Vaheguru has made this body, and this body is stronger than any machine, and it's just the noises of the body that we're hearing. It's nothing more than that. So this avastha is very, very high. And after this, so we've got to the stage that even the things around us, we are hearing Simran in them. But after that, there's a question that arises that, okay, theek hai, we can hear Simran in them, but are we recognizing them to be the source of Simran? Are we recognizing them to be Akal Purkh Vaheguru? Because it's one thing to experience something, and it's another thing to know something. The bird, we can hear it saying Vaheguru, Vaheguru, but do we understand why that is? And that's the next stage, in which we attain the realization that Sabha Kat Ram Bola, Rama Bola, Ram Bina Ko Bola Re. That in everything, Akal Purkh Vaheguru is sat, and that's what is causing this Simran. And that is the avastha that Bhai Kanhaiya ji had when they were giving pani to the Mughal enemies, the enemy soldiers as well. And Sant Jarnail Singh ji too, at Sri Hajur Sahib, when they were doing Abhyas, and Guru Maharaj ji blessed them with Abhinasi Darshan, which was that you can always see my darshan. That is the same avastha, tu hirde gupt vasaidin rati. That in everyone's hirda, in everyone we begin to see the light of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. So often we hear that humanity, or that modern culture says, or a lot of new scholars, intellects are saying that it's just the purpose of life is to be a good person, to see the good in everything. We can't actually achieve that by ourselves, because we will have irkha, and there will be things that disgust us. Sometimes it can even be physically. Someone may have a disease or a rogue, leprosy for example. We may be disgusted by it, even though we may not want to. But at this avastha, we go past all of that, because we see that. And Baba Santokh Singh was a Mahapurkh that lived in Fatehgarh Sahib. And I asked some of their sevadars that when they wanted to, they used to listen to Kirtan from a few individuals, that when they listened to Kirtan, what shabads, because they used to be quite particular that we want to hear this shabad, or they used to say that, O Chi di Katha Suna. And I said, what shabads did they say to you to sing? And it was these two shabads that they used to say the most, that Sabha Kat Ram Bola, so Ram Bola, and the other one was Mati ko putra kaise nachat hai, that this body is like a puppet, and how Akal Purkh Vaheguru is just controlling it. That they were at that Param Avastha where they could actually realize all of this. And another question comes that, okay, Akal Purkh Vaheguru is in everything, and holi now we are seeing the light of Akal Purkh Vaheguru in everything, and that's his virtue. So where Gurbanhee calls Akal Purkh Vaheguru Dunga, Gambir, what does that mean? How can Akal Purkh Vaheguru be deep? He's deep because Ogan Kona Chatarda Gal Seti Layak. He sees all, he knows the sins that we do, that the world knows, but even those things that we keep most secret to us, Akal Purkh Vaheguru knows that. But still he sustains that. In that same way, the Gurmukh that reaches this avastha of Sabha Kat Ram Bola, Rama Bola, Ram Bina Ko Bola Re, he too gets this virtue, and he becomes benevolent. And he too, no matter how bad or how evil a person is, he tries to help them. So that was why Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, they travelled Babbe Tare Char Chak Naukan Prithvi Sacha Toa, because they saw the light of Akal Purkh Vaheguru in everyone, and all those people that the world saw as bad, Sajjan, Thagapu, Mia Chor, Wali Kandari, etc., they saw the light of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, and they showed them the path. Now after this, the ninth avastha comes, and this is where Tart Patal Akas hai meri jindadiye sab har har naam te aave Ram. that the elements, because in the most basic form, this world is made out of 5 elements. We all recognize that, even science recognizes that. In this avastha, it's not just things that are living or things that we can see, it's the actual elements. They start singing the praises of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And in Gurbanhee it says, Simra Tarti aur Akasa, Simra hai Chand Surj Gun Tasa. And Mahapurkh Sant Gyani Sundar Singh Ji, when it was their Barsi yesterday, and we even mentioned it in the Katha yesterday as well. And downstairs when we went to the Simran, Gyani Gurjinder Singh was also doing Vichar on their Jeevan. And yesterday we talked about how they were Jeevan Mukht, that even though they became one with Akal Purkh Vaheguru, just for the benefit of everyone else, they did such big feats of endurance, 23-hour Amrit Sanchars, etc. And they were doing Katha of this Shabad, Simra Tarti Ara Kasa, Simra Chand Surj Gun Tasa. And in that Jatha was a Singh called Bhai Hajura Singh. And he asked them, how can this be? How can this be an avastha of Naam, that even the Tarti and the sky, all of the elements, they sing Maharaj's praise? And at that time, Sant Sundar Singh said that, we shouldn't do Shanka on Gurbanhee, just accept it. And he said, no, I want to hear it. Then they go, so be it. They go, put your ear next to the wall. And when he put his ear next to the wall, he could hear Vaheguru, Vaheguru Simran. And he could hear Mool Mantar. And then he said, no, and he wanted to hear more, obviously, because when you get a little bit of this ras, you just want more and more and more. It's more addictive than any of the Vishay ras that we have in this world, because although they are addictive at this point, when we get the true ras of Naam, they all become so trivial. They become alpsukh, the things that are temporary. And he wanted more of this, so he goes that, okay, I've heard Mool Mantar, but I was referring to Gur Mantar, that I can't hear Vaheguru. So they said that, okay, do this, go listen to the door. And when he put his ear next to the door, he could hear Vaheguru, Vaheguru. And it was 8 of them that came to Mahapurkh to ask this question. And what happened was, Mahapurkh blessed them with this avastha, and they stayed like this for 8 days. And how we described the Bide Mukh, that he becomes so attuned with the Akal Purkh Vaheguru that he forgets about his body, they were the same. They lost all sense of their kirya, so going to the bathroom, eating, everything, it became useless for them. They saw no use in it. They were just attuned to Naam. They left their seva, everything. And then on the 8th day, Sant stopped them that you've stopped doing your Santhya, your Katha, your Nitnem. When you do Simran, you'll get this avastha, but now you need to do your seva and live your Gurmat Jeevan and do Parupakar, because that's the purpose of our Jeevan. It's just not to have an experience. It's to, as Gursikhs, our experience is much more than just having a roller coaster ride. Because some of the things that are promised by other paths are that, if you do Simran, then you get this, you will see this or that, and you'll get this avastha. But the avasthas are there, yes, to allure us that we should do Simran to get them. But one thing that we should also understand is that the main thing for a Sikh is Maharaj Sahib's khushiyan. And in Gurbanhee it says, Raj na chahu, Mukht na chahu. And what do we want? We just want Maharaj's Charna Kamla di Preeti. We want Maharaj Sahib's khushiyan. Maharaj Sahib's khushiyan is in doing Parupakar. And after that, so they said that, go and do Matha Tek to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And they did that, and then the avastha went, but they gained it whenever they did Simran. So this was the 9th avastha in which the elements themselves start to do Simran. Now the 10th one is the final one out of all of this, and in that avastha we lose complete form. So in the 9th avastha, in Tartakas Patal hai meri jindriya sab har har naam tyave ram, we are still, even though we've come so far in the path, we're still attached to what is physical. We're listening to the Simran in the elements because we recognize them to exist. In this avastha, and who reached this avastha, it was Bhagt Kabir Ji. Kabir Ji says, Kabir, tu karta, tu hua, mujh mein reha na hu, jab appa parka mit gaya, jat dekha ta tu. And in that avastha, that Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj Ji calls Sachkhand. Sachkhand vasai nirankar, where form ceases to exist and we become one with the Akal Purkh Vaheguru. That is the 10th avastha of Naam. And these are all within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj's Bani. So this was the vichar on the different avasthas of Naam. And again, just emphasizing on this point that we may be very far in this. There may be some of us that have attained very high avasthas in Naam, but there may be some of us that think that this is too far of us, but it's not unreachable. The purpose of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj coming to this earth, so Akal Purkh Vaheguru himself taking Janam in a human form on this earth, was to make this Naam accessible to us. In Bhai Gurdas Singh Avara, it talks about the effort that Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj went. So Pehlan Babe Paya Baksdar, that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj themselves did bhakti. What a hard bhakti it was. Ret ak ahar kar rodan di gur kari vishai. That Guru Maharaj ate nothing but the dry fruits, and they slept on phones. And that was, and in Sarblo Granth it goes even further. It even explains that Guru Nanak Dev Ji in Akal Roop, before coming on this world, they did meditation for 9 lakh varsha. For 900,000 years, Guru Maharaj did Abhyas. No, sorry, 9 yug, so which is even more than 9 lakh saal. They did 9 yug, so this age of Kal Yug is 420,000 years. And the yug before that, which was Dwapar, was double that, and so forth up until Satyug. And Guru Maharaj did Abhyas for 36 yugs, 9 yugs on the letter Vava, and 9 yugs on Haha, then Gagga, then Rara. And this was the components of Vaheguru, and then they came and gave that to us. And they've done that to make that Amrit Naam, that Vastu, which is Agochar, it cannot be fathomed by anyone. The Bhai Gurdas Sahib Ji says that Ved Kateb Agochara, that this mantra that Guru Maharaj Ji gave us, it could not be gathered by anything that had previously been said, and Guru Maharaj Ji gave it to us to make it accessible. So this was the vichar, this is the Mahatma, the importance of Amrit Naam and the avasthas that we can attain to it. And whilst narrating this Katha, I'm sure that I've made countless mistakes, so please forgive me for them and bless me with Gursikhi and Gursikhi da Prachar. And just a benti now, that now it's Divan di Samapti, but after Divan is obviously the rest period and the breakfast. But again, we will be starting Sukhmani Sahib promptly today at 10:45. We'll try our best that it starts at 10:45 so that we can do it Sejje. Just another benti on that although it sometimes seems that reading Gurbanhee slowly is more beneficial, one of the things that Mahaprabhu say in Katha, or Abhyasis have said in Katha, is that it's like sometimes that even when I'm narrating a Pankti to you, when I say it very, very slowly, I forget what the Pankti is. That's because I haven't really pakad it. And it's the same when we read Gurbanhee. When we read Gurbanhee slowly, it's very, very easy for the mind to wander. When we focus on the meanings of Gurbanhee and we read it fast, it's bang, bang, bang. It keeps hitting us. And that way, there's less chances for the mind to wander. But both ways, different things work for different people. So both things are acceptable. But reading Gurbanhee fastly too is not something that should be avoided, or it should be looked down upon, that why is that person reading Gurbanhee fast. It might just be that that person is helping their mind focus. Because a minute of pause, the mind is faster. They say that back in Maharaj Sahib Ji's day, that the fastest thing that Shemi Pasha's time was Udan Khatola. It was like a plane made out of wood. And they asked Maharaj, what is faster than an Udan Khatola? Is there anything? Is there a vehicle that's faster than that? The Sakhi's long. They started off with a horse, then a chariot, and they they said that, is there anything faster than an Udan Khatola? And then Maharaj goes, yeah, it's the human mind. It's faster than the wind. And they go, then is anything faster than that? And then that is Amrit Naam. The speed of Amrit Naam is faster than even of that of mind. And that's why we need to do Abhyas, that we constantly give it that Naam. So this was the vichara for today. Again, I seek forgiveness. Fateh Pravan Karni Ji. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.